Today, here at My Car Shop, we are continuing on with our shop organization series. In our last episode, my friend Mark was here and we talked about the difference between micro and macro. We also talked about visual organizers versus hidden organizers. But there are some differences where you may have, like I am particularly, a macro organizer who's visual, and Mark is a micro organizer who's generally hidden. You may be a micro who's visual or a macro who's hidden. So we have some more stuff to talk about. There's so much information to share about this. This is my own personal journey of discovery, and I'm just sharing with you what I'm learning and what works. The biggest thing in shop organization is find your natural style, because that's the only thing you're going to do to maintain what you do. Find what comes naturally and do that thing, and you'll be amazed at the transformation that happens in your life. As I've shared in some recent videos, there's been a lot going on around here, and I've not been the only one working in here. So I need to kind of rein things back a little bit, and I'm not going to share all the gory details of that with you. But as my thoughts process, I'm going to flip the camera back on, and we're going to talk about some of the differences between macro hidden and micro visual. It's an interesting concept. So we'll have to explain some of that for those of you who have never been here before. Just spent 30 minutes just doing a blitz, dealing with the trash, which there was hardly any of, putting away the simple stuff, dealing with the way I deal with things in a macro visual organizational style. Now, here's the thing. I like things being where I can see them so I can easily identify where they are. Some people don't. So I'm going to give you some examples of what a macro organizer whose visual style is hidden, rather than things being out in the open where they're easily defined. You may be a macro who wants things behind closed doors. I'm a little of both, but I don't mind seeing things. For example, I'm looking over there at all the yellow tools. I know that all my battery operated DeWalt stuff is there. I know that underneath, as well as some corded stuff. Underneath that is all my pneumatic tools. Those don't need to be behind a closed door for me. In fact, I would prefer they weren't, because at a glance I can see, oh yes, my impact drill is there, my regular drill is there, my sawzall is there, my circular saw is there, etc., etc. I can look down and see, oh yes, both my impact guns are there, my DA is there, etc. I can dig through that real quick, but I can tell that if there's not a car here, I can tell that from all the way over there. I kind of like that. So it's ease of access, ease of finding that we really go for here. So a macro organizer means he thinks big picture. Things don't have to be fine detailed. Things being in a pile is okay as long as everything gets put back in that pile. It's about finding what works for you. Now, a micro organizer that's visual will like things very organized, and if they're visual, they want them hung on boards and pegs and tools like I have back in my workbench area, and I'll take you back there in a minute. And they like to be able to see things. A hidden organizer likes things to be organized, but in a closed door where you can't see it. They don't want to see the clutter. So there's differences. We're all a mix of these things. So I'm going to take you around and show you some of the examples. Again, what I accomplished here in just about 30 minutes is just blitzing. There's still stuff to deal with, but this is all I wanted to accomplish today. So my bench is fairly okay, needs some things dealt with, but better. So this is my visual macro here, okay, where I just have everything thrown in a cubby and I'm fine with that. I can see it. A visual micro would have the same thing, but everything would have a place and it would be clearly laid out, but it would still be visual where they can see it. The same things with down here, okay? So pardon the mess back here on the bench because I've got a bunch of other stuff going on. And I got a carburetor torn apart and I'm working on organizing this and getting it put back, but I'm sharing in process. This is probably more of a visual micro than a visual macro. I like having all my wrenches hanging on a board. So we're a mix of all of these things, okay? I see I'm missing 3 sockets. I see I'm missing a wrench. I see I'm missing 2 pair of pliers. I know where that stuff is. This needs to go back up here, stuff like that. So this is more of a visual micro style. A visual a hidden micro would have these things in a toolbox in a rack, and I have that in my toolbox also, but I find they're better here where I can easily access them. We've talked about the container concept before, but if you're new here, rather than throwing things on a bench top, I throw things in a container so that they're all contained. Now I know if something's not back there on the board or over in the toolbox, the first place I'm going to look is one of the two containers I have in the shop. I have one here for things that are from working in this area, particularly on cars. And I have one on the toolbox over there that's for staging, putting things away in the toolbox. Now, most of the time, I'll be dumping these containers tomorrow and putting things back where they belong. It'll take me 10 minutes to put that container and get it all put away. And that works better for me than every time I'm done with something, putting it all away. The way my life is, I have just enough time to work on something, and I have to drop everything literally where I'm at and get on to the next thing in life that has to happen. So this works for me. Doesn't mean it will work for you. But again, I like the clear containers rather than the hidden containers, because I can glance through and see, oh yeah, there's a 1/2-inch drive socket. There's one of my 3/8 extensions. Oh look, there's some silicone. I can look on the side and say, oh, there's some RTV there. There's a head of an extension cord in there. I can kind of, well, there's a small screwdriver over here. You see what I mean? So I like the clear containers. Some people that would drive nuts. I get that. Not everybody's the same. If you are a micro visual, the containers probably won't work for you because you're going to want to put everything away exactly when you're done with it. That's not the lifestyle that I lead, nor does it fit my personality type nor my organizational style. Anybody that says there's only one way to organize things and it has to be done this way is arrogant, narrow-minded, and blind. Sorry to be that blunt, but it's true. There's your way, and that's fine if it works for you, but don't ram that down somebody else's throat and assume that's the only way things can be done, okay? Even as an employer, I don't demand that things be done my way. I will allow my employees to find their own style in how they work with things and how they do things. As long as it's all findable for everybody in the shop, I don't care if it's micro, macro, whatever. Now, I know that there comes friction when you have a micro working with a macro, etc., or a macro working with a micro. Mark and I talked about that a little bit in our recent episode. But I try to train people also in the idea that, look, you got to find compromise. You got to find what works for you. If Mark worked in this shop, it would drive him absolutely crazy. He would want to empty this building, put everything outside, and start over again. Emptying this building and putting everything outside and starting over again would make me just turn the lights off and say, screw it, I'm not doing it. Different personalities, neither way's right nor wrong. But my emphasis today is to recognize that you can be a micro visual or you can be a macro hidden. Okay, so a macro hidden means you just have everything in a container, throw the lid on it, you don't want to see through it. You don't necessarily label it, you just kind of mentally go tools, okay, and that's what's on it, or 47 Ford parts, or whatever, and that's all. I prefer the clear because I'm still visual. But if everything is easily accessible, then nothing is easily accessible either. A micro hidden would put everything in a container and have it very organized and have detailed labels on the end of the container. They probably wouldn't want a clear container. They don't want to see what's in there. They're going to trust their labeling system. We are all a mix of these four types. I have some micro in me, I have some macro in me, I have some hidden in me, I have some visual, and you do too. So if we were to lay that out into a Venn diagram where this circle is like this and we have this circle divided up into 4 pieces of pie, you may be strong in this area over here, very little of these. You may be strong in these here, very little of these. You may be strong in these here, very little of these. But we are a mix of all 4 of these, and I think that's key. So I present this video to you to challenge you and say, think about you, not what you think you should do. Okay, don't go there. Think about what's natural. What do you tend to do? It took me a long time to get this, that I tend to just drop things where I work on them and then scoop them up and put them in a pile somewhere else. And that was a clue to me that I'm more of a macro. I'm not a micro. I'm happy with things being in piles for the most part. My toolbox is fairly organized. My tool wall is fairly organized. That's just simply for ease. Some people would be happy with a container and have all their wrenches in it and don't mind doing this to find them, okay? That is a very macro person who has very little visual in their organization style. Nothing wrong with that. Other people would have a container, but they would want wrench organizers. Everybody's different, so find what works for you. Some people want nothing visible, everything in a cupboard, everything on a shelf, hidden behind closed doors, in containers if they are, with lids that you can't see through. Again, that's fine. It's what works for you. I was recently getting some crap for this back corner of the barn because it's such a mess back there. First of all, it's not nearly as big a mess as it appears. If I wanted to work on this car, I could literally be in there in 10 minutes and be working on it, and I'm going to be soon. It's just that there are things that are convenient to throw my cardboard on the roof of that car. My punching bag I'm still dealing with. Everything else is quickly on wheels, quickly moved out, other than the Challenger stuff that I have sitting on the hood, which I'm still scratching my head on a home for that makes sense because I don't want to put it upstairs where it's going to get crapped all over. So right there, I know it's okay, it's safe, and until I get working on the duster, I'm not worried about it right now. I don't want to put it in the Challenger, even though there's a bunch of stuff in the Challenger because it's on the rotisserie and I constantly be having to take it back out. Right now, on the hood of the duster is a safe place. I know it's not going to get damaged until I come up with a place. So sometimes we stage things in places till we can figure it out. I got an idea that I might be going to put a shelf up above the garage door and put some of that valuable Challenger stuff up there out of the way. We also have all of those cabinets in the back room that I recently showed you. We may, once we get those upstairs, we may squirrel some Challenger stuff away in there. That stuff is long-term that needs to be protected. Everybody's unique, everybody's different, but we're all a blending of these four basic things when it comes to our organization. And that's the point of today's videos. I hadn't talked about that before in quite those terms. We've talked micro and macro, we've talked visual and hidden, but I didn't break into how a micro could be visual or a macro could be hidden. And I think that's key because I know some of you guys are working through this same stuff as I'm working through it. And some of this comes from a series that I've seen on YouTube about home organization, but some of it also comes from my experience working as a therapist for over 20 years and just plugging in things I've always known about human personality, but not thinking about how it applies to organization. Like I said, this has been a journey of discovery for myself. I'm completing my 58th year of life, and I'm just figuring this stuff out about myself. The whole point of life is the day you stop learning, the day you stop improving, is the day you start dying. So keep that in mind. All right, we'll do it on this one. Drop your comments, your thoughts, your criticism, kind criticism. We don't need ashtray comments down there, please. We will catch you on the next one. I appreciate you being here. Oh yeah, don't forget, it is important.